Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I'm Mayor Shelby Ronstadt presiding. Also present are councilors Kate McAllister, Deb Rule, Joel Spiro, Andy Grote, and Justin Dick, along with Jason Welker, who's attending remotely. If everyone would please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, our announcements. Are there any announcements from council? Hearing none. Any from staff?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder on a couple of events that we have coming up. Tomorrow evening here in council chambers, we will be having a meeting on the skate park expansion. So please, families, community members attend the meeting. You can also access it online. The link is on our website. So if people aren't able to be here in person, it will be there as well. And then it will go up on our YouTube channel also. So Maeve will be leading that discussion with Dreamland tomorrow evening. So they've got some concepts to get feedback. So all skaters should come out for that event. Secondly, we also have an upcoming open house on April 27th from 11 to 6:30. And that will be over at the library meeting room B. And Amy, our city planner, will be there looking for public input, and she's available for conversations and discussions regarding the comprehensive plan update. And then we will also have Amanda Wilson, our IDS director, there on the multimodal transportation master plan. So any questions people have about that, the amendments that we've been talking about, so opportunity to have conversations throughout the day. So that will be over at the library.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I forgot about an announcement as I was thinking about this. I believe that the Idaho Conservation League is having a city beach cleanup on Saturday, celebrating Earth Day from 10 to noon. I participated last year and they recommended bring muck boots or it gets sloppy. And I think that they had gloves and trash bags, but for those individuals that would like to come, bring maybe their own 5-gallon bucket and just come along. We'll go play in the mud.
You are correct, Counselor, and we are co-sponsoring this year through Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. So Jason will be there, Maeve will be there, some of our maintenance crews will be there as well. And thank you to some of our recreation groups that have stepped up and said they will be coming out and are organized for that event too. So
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. I appreciate
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
also thank you for jogging my memory. I thought about two quick things. The Sandpoint Shopping District has got their Let's Go Girls promotion going on Saturday, April 22nd. That'll be going all day. Over 30 different participating retailers and restaurants with discounts. I think there's an opportunity to win Shania Twain tickets as well too. One other thing I wanted to mention, because Lost in the 50s is right around the corner. We have a Lost in the 50s fundraiser. It's a pancake breakfast over at 2nd Avenue on Sunday, April 23rd. And I believe that's going on from like 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. So please go on over there. All proceeds from that will go to paying for Lost in the 50s. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay. Next, we'll proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which gives the public the opportunity to address the council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the agenda. If anyone here in chambers wishes to speak now during the public forum or during any other portion of the meeting, you must complete a sign-up form, which is located on the table by the front door, and please hand it to the clerk here in the front right of the room. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak during the general public forum, please raise your hand on Zoom at this time. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up or raised their hand on Zoom to speak during the public forum?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So to accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you'd like to speak and did not have the opportunity to do so, we will provide that opportunity by reopening the public forum at the end of our regular agenda. I ask for your attention, please, as I recite the rules and procedure for public comment during the meeting. Council may not hear or take testimony during public forum on any planning and zoning matter that is before the city or is known to be a likely application. Such testimony is allowed only during a properly noticed public hearing. Issues regarding the performance of city employees constitute matters that must be discussed only in executive session and are not appropriate during the public portion of the meeting. Matters that have been previously heard and decided by the council may be determined to be inappropriate for public forum. Citizens may use this time to request that items be placed on a future agenda for further discussion. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this meeting or the business at hand that is being taken up by the council. Disruptive behavior includes clapping, disruptive noise, and comments or exclamations from the audience. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities during meetings are for comments only. Do not direct any questions to myself or council or to staff, and do not approach the dais. Also, please do not approach the clerk or the staff up here at the front tables, as this disrupts the meeting. You may inquire of staff at the back table who can provide assistance if needed. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and whether or not you reside within the city of Sandpoint. That concludes the public forum. That includes our rules anyway for the public forum this evening. Madam Clerk, the first speaker, please.
Luke Ahmet.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. I'm going to start by saying thank you. Oh, by the way, I am a Sandpoint resident, and I am speaking also as Bonner County Commissioner tonight. I want to start by saying thank you. The stuff that you are working towards as a council is fantastic. I remember, as someone who grew up here and in 45 years has moved all the way across the street from my grandma's house, when there used to be a dog leg where we have the new bank. I remember when there used to be a driving range where Walmart was. Times change. I remember picking up rocks and bricks out of the fields that I played on for strikers because that's the way it was. Trevor's Park has changed. City Beach has changed. We used to have a splash pad at City Beach. I used to splash in it, and I may have accidentally contributed to some of the problems there as a wee child. The work that Maeve is doing, and I don't mean to be inappropriate, and I will work hard to be civil. The work that Maeve is doing for this city needs to be recognized. It is incredible. And I recognize, as someone who is now in government, there is the speed of government, which is a little slower than water racing uphill. So what I am here to do today is to ask, how can I help? I will be writing a letter of support. Please continue to work on these projects. They are appreciated. And I am grateful. My kids are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, we'll call for somebody from Zoom.
Okay.
Molly McCann.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Molly McCann, Sandpoint. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak tonight. My comments are about the couplet, the curve, the east-west Highway 2 connection, the Boyer revision, the Figure 23 amendment, and the multimodal plan transportation master plan, both long-term and short-term. And because the citizens have already taken their valuable time to articulate their many concerns involved with this confusing mouthful. I will make this very short. Please vote no on May 3rd. And better yet, don't bring it forward to a vote at all. Thank you again for listening to the citizens you represent. Good night.
Thank you, Ms. McCann.
Kyle Schreiber.
Hi, Kyle Schreiber, Sandpoint resident, and thank you for the chance to speak today. I want to speak about growth and how much of it we should be planning for. The baby boomer generation has for a long time dominated the demographics of this country, and Sandpoint is no exception. Over the last several years, a main driving factor of the growth that we've experienced is from recent retirees. This is very clearly reflected in the relatively high average age of Bonner County residents. And this demographic shift was easily foreseeable. As folks retire, they no longer need to be located near their work, and they move to a pleasant place to retire, like Sandpoint. The relative affordability of real estate in Sandpoint also meant that many folks could buy a house and still afford to have money left over to live off of. The question is, should we expect that to continue? Well, the 2008 financial crisis led to many people delaying their retirement, and then the pandemic led to many people retiring early. So the growth we've seen in the last couple of years was exaggerated both by early retirees and late retirees. Also, the median aged baby boomer reached the typical retirement age within the last couple of years, meaning more than half of baby boomers are now already retired. And the age distribution for the baby boomer generation isn't flat. The same number of people who weren't born each year. It's shaped like a bell curve. The further you get away from the center, the fewer people there are represented. Basically, there will be fewer and fewer people retiring every year. Plus, the recent spike in Sandpoint home prices means that retirees will have less left over for their retirement. And current interest rates have also led many people to avoid moving at all if possible. This can be seen around town with homes staying on the market a lot longer. And I want to say this in the most respectful way possible, but within the next decade or so, the median age baby boomer will reach their life expectancy. Now, I hope all of our residents live to be 100, but statistically, many of our neighbors, friends, and community members will pass on within the time frame of our current planning period. Again, the relatively high average age of our residents cannot be ignored. And sure, there is and there will continue to be new residents moving here that don't fit this demographic. But it's entirely likely that that growth will be offset. Now, let's talk about behavioral differences between generations. As is clearly noted in the multimodal transportation plan, baby boomers drive more often than younger Americans. Generation X, slightly less so, and millennials even less than that. Gen Z has been significantly less likely to drive, with many young adults not even holding a driver's license at all. So even if our population continues to rise at the current rate, it's reasonable to expect that the average—
Mr. Schreiber, your time has expired. Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Madam Clerk.
Ken Stevens.
My name's Ken Stevens. Yes, I am a city of Sandpoint resident. Thank you for your time. I just want to talk about, I understand there's going to be a building of tennis over at Traverse Park. And I want to talk about, I do believe from hearsay that it is in one spot in the middle where they're going to have, where the kids are playing now. I was wondering if there's a better spot for that out towards the Assembly of God Church that has more room for that instead of crowding that in there in that spot. So that's all I wanted to bring up to you and what I had to say. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Teresa Stevens.
Hi there, I'm Teresa Stevens. I'm a resident of Sandpoint. My father was Frank Travers. I'm so proud of him. He worked so hard to be a voice in the lives of young children. And so I'm hoping that the park that was named after him would be reserved for younger people. If there's big tennis buildings there, it's going to take away from the space that's there for children. So I really feel we have to spend money on more parks rather than changing Travers Park in any way. It's just wonderful for the kids. The equipment that's there is great for kids. To undo that, to put in these tennis courts would be expensive. And where would our moms go with their kids? And watch their kids play baseball. So that's what I want to say. I hope we can find another piece of land to put more parks on. Lots more parks. Less houses.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Appreciate those comments.
John Travers.
Mayor, councilman, people. Obviously, it's about the park. I come in that way to town and I drive by that park. And it's known, my dad was known for a baseball coach and taking care of the parks and such. I've got nothing against tennis. If I wasn't so old and heavy, I'd play tennis. But I'd like to be able to drive by that park and see that it's a ballpark, not a big building that has taken up the room for the kids to play or on the swings and everything that are there right now. It's a really important park. And to crowd it much more, we need more parks. Maybe move it someplace close, but keep the park the way it is what I'm trying to get at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Travers.
Monica Gunter.
Monica Gunner, Monica Travers Gunner. There's a whole bunch of us. You're lucky you only got this many. But the city and the county of Bonner County has received a generous gift from the Russell family, who are also very good friends of ours. We appreciate their gift. We want this gift to take footing in some place other than over the playground at Travers Park. When you drive by that park, my daughter works at the dental office right across the street. She said that park is full of kids all day long. The schools go to that playground. They walk down the streets from all directions and take the school to that playground. I know you say you will rebuild the playground in the future, but to have that monstrosity, wonderful gift that close to the road, when it could even go at Travers Park at the far back end. We don't like the idea because right now it's a baseball park. It's a soccer park. The parents can stand at that playground, watch their kids play, their little kids play, turn around and watch their older kids play softball and play soccer and enjoy that whole park. But now if the plan goes through as we understand is being thought of, all you'll see is this wonderful, generous, but awful large building on Travers Park. My dad he worked so hard on Memorial Field. In our opinion, it's why it's Memorial Field as it is now. We love Memorial Field. Travers Park is a blessing to this community, and we just want it to stay the way it is, or at least the aesthetics of how it is. If that building has to go on Travers Park, put it at the far end where you still see the park. Tennis is wonderful. Tennis is more of an adult, high school and adult sport. Pickleball is a sport for everybody, but Travers Park needs to stay Travers Park as it is now. And if that building goes in, let's put it at the back and it will still be Travers Park. So just our thoughts, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gunner. Appreciate those comments.
Mr. Mayor. For the next speaker, another member of the audience has completed a form indicating that they will donate their time to the speaker. So I'm going to reset this for 6 minutes.
Okay.
Rebecca Holland.
Okay, good evening, Council. Rebecca Holland for the record. Well, just when I thought I'd start with a really positive thing about a city project, then I heard that the skate park expansion will again be delayed. So year after year, the skateboard community raises money at snow events and skate events, but now it's just another, sorry, kids, you'll have to wait. And it's this very same scenario that I fear will happen to the playground at Travers. You can say staff has some great ideas, but to actually fund them with a state federal based grant, there's absolutely no guarantee you'll see that $500,000. It'll be summer before knowing if the application is even accepted. Next fall before results will be known. So says the state's website. After reading the criteria for receiving a grant from Idaho Lands and Water Conservation Fund, it seemed hypocritical to take down a perfectly good ADA playset, then ask for money to rebuild it in the name of conservation. Conservation is the prevention of wasteful uses of resources. The word conservation stems from the Latin meaning to guard, to preserve, as in to preserve the earth for future generations. Nothing about the city plan fits within the spirit of honest conservation in my mind. I can't help but wonder if the state even knows you're asking for money to rebuild because you destroyed 25 metal supports to the playground and the functioning concrete ramps that were previously funded by the Christopher Reeves Foundation to assist disabled children. What's good earth about axing two very large shade trees that parents like to sit beneath when watching their children play there? Let's be honest. Whoopsie, I missed the wrong. Let's be honest, when the tennis community pushed back against losing their outdoor courts, the city should have engaged the community to choose a better location for the building. The park is public land. Then came the manipulative twist, misrepresenting the geotechnical test. I obtained results showing both tennis courts and the playground have wood debris below the surface. Both sites received similar recommendations to remove the buried wood before building. If that's the reason why the tennis courts couldn't be used, then that's the same conclusion that needs to be drawn for the playground. Mayor Shelby, you are the chief administrator. You have the authority granted to you by the people of this community to direct staff, as you did, steering them away from a 260 vehicle parking lot back to the people's choice of a summer splash pad. No one who's sitting at the table to my left were elected by the people to make this level of a decision. This is your responsibility to get it right. Let's be real. This will be your legacy as mayor on whether family-friendly decisions were given your favor. I'm here tonight with resident Lorna Mitchell, who gave me a little extra time. So here we go. So I could share with you the petition I began to tell you about at the last meeting. I have over now 200 signatures, and I will read it to you. We, the residents of Sandpoint and Bonner County, petition the city of Sandpoint to not take down the children's play set picnic shelter with its mature trees at Travers Park. We built it in 2010 with community funds and special foundation grants. We value our existing play set and endorse additions, upgrades, and repairs when needed. Our community should have a voice in choosing a better location for the new tennis pickleball facility. We want our local children and the tennis community to be given equal consideration. And as I said, it's over 200 signatures. For the most part, the signatures are parents of children who knew nothing about the playground being removed. Most looked around the park wondering why there wasn't some other location to be considered. I'm trying to be a fair representative here for local parents tonight. I've attended numerous council meetings where children's needs were being considered, as you know, and have repeatedly called on the city to establish a safe route for kids to ride their bikes in the downtown core. I'm here for the young moms and dads who can't be here to lobby for their children's interests tonight. At 5:30, they're home feeding their kids. It has taken me 3 council meetings, and I gotta move this cursor, to deliver this rapid fire talk for 3 minutes to express my reasons to oppose this plan. Had the city conducted a true workshop like we used to have, where we'd sit around and we would really talk, you'd hear a lot of residents think that this plan is wasteful and overly expensive, $1 million. They'd be asking for a splash pad to simply be added to the existing play set. I have no doubt that Maeve has the talent to design fun, creative features that the kids would love. But for her projects to be successful, she'll need the community's support going forward, and it's not there right now. So I ask you, Mayor Shelby, to please direct staff to schedule a workshop and a meaningful survey for this important decision. Like others, I have a solid idea to share when the time is right to do that. You should also reach out to the Russell family and let them know the original plan did not work out. And now the city is engaging the community to decide on a better location. And please be sure to say the people are, is that me? Very
you.
appreciative of their generous gift. Let me just finish this, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Your time is up. Thank you, Ms. Holland. Appreciate those comments.
Okay, well, let's get real and just do the right thing, please. Thank you. I had something nice to say about Rep. Mr. Russ.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have anybody else signed up for public forum.
Okay. Just to confirm, is there no one else who would like to speak during the public forum portion of the meeting this evening? All right, hearing none, that concludes the public forum portion of the meeting this evening. Next on the agenda, we have the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $1,498,515.85, reflecting $339,910.51 for regular payables and $1,158,605.34 for payroll. Does council have any questions, or are there any items council wishes to remove calendar? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, sorry. It looks like Counselor Welker has frozen. Which I don't know, he might have wanted to say something, so I just wanted to put us a pause here.
Okay. We're pausing. Counselor Welker, you might want to turn off the screen, and maybe that would give you more bandwidth for your audio. Right now, you are frozen to us. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but if you can give me something. But we certainly have a quorum here, so we can just note for the record that he is frozen. I'm sure when he comes to, we will know. Thank you for calling attention to that. I appreciate it. So we have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
Consent calendar is approved. Next on the agenda is a public hearing on the request to rezone 10 lots at 710 and 714 Pine Street and 101 and 103 North Boyer Avenue. Parcels RPS 0500054022AA and RPS 0500054018AA and RPS 0500054015AA. From commercial C to mixed use residential, these properties located at the northwest corner of North Boyer Avenue and Pine Street are legally described as lots 15-24 15-24 of Block 54 of West End Edition E, Section 22, Township 57 North, Range 2 West, records of Bonner County, Idaho. Following a public hearing during the regular meeting on March 7, 2023, the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend council approval of this request as presented. A notice of public hearing was published in the Bonner County Daily Bee, the city's newspaper of record, on March 28th, 2023. I will now recite the order and procedure of the public hearing. First, explanation of the subject of the public hearing by city staff. Second, presentation by the applicant. Please note that council members should address their questions to the applicant at that time. Third, opening of the public hearing, at which time the public may provide testimony. The order for those providing testimony will be as follows. A, those in favor, B, those neutral to the request, and C, those opposed. Then fourth, applicant's rebuttal testimony, at which time the final questions may be asked of the applicant. Please note that if new facts are elicited during rebuttal, the public will be given an opportunity to comment on any new facts. Fifth, the public hearing will be closed. And sixth, the council will deliberate. No new information may be provided after the hearing has been closed, with questions directed only to city staff during deliberation, please. Okay, for the record, any written comments received prior to agenda posting were included in the meeting packet or otherwise provided to council. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask for confirmation from each council member that you've had no ex parte contact or conflict of interest as pertains to this request.
None.
None.
Okay, let the record reflect. And Mr. Welker? None?
None on my part, thank you.
Thank you for joining us again.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Understood. Okay, let the record reflect that there has been no ex parte contact or conflict of interest among council members. Same is true for myself. I will now yield the floor to City Planner Amy Tweeten for an introduction and explanation. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is a public hearing on a rezoning request at 101, 103 North Boyer and 710 14 Pine Street. The request is to rezone the subject properties from commercial C to mixed use residential. The existing uses that are being requested for rezoning are a commercial building, historically residential structure that was most recently used as a bakery, a former church, and then a residential structure on the lot with the church. The request began with the property owner approaching staff about wishing to turn the church building into a single family residence. Single family dwellings are not a permitted use in the commercial C district. So we discussed with them ways they could move this forward and things that they needed to consider because they are surrounded by a commercial district. So rezoning to a residential district would not be compatible with comprehensive plan. And other commercial districts to consider that may not allow the use as well. Other consideration was rezoning a single parcel versus the adjoining parcel. So the original discussion was with the Satterbergs, and they did approach the neighbors. And so the request to rezone is for multiple properties. And the intent of the rezone is to allow for the existing non-conforming uses, which there is a single family dwelling, to become conforming, to allow existing structures to be used for the purpose of single family residential. And in becoming single family residential, allowing uses that would have fewer parking requirements than strictly commercial uses. The property is within the context area 4 of the future land use map, and that emphasizes 2- and 3-story mixed use buildings, and it's intended as a secondary vibrant center for a mix of uses and providing commercial uses for neighboring residential properties. The property in the commercial C zone, commercial C is less intensive than commercial A and commercial B. But but does still require ground floor commercial use and a minimum of 2 stories. The proposed zoning mixed-use residential does not require that vertical mix of uses. It allows it, but does not require it. It does allow single-family residential and is designed as more of a transitional district from commercial to residential. The development standards in the 2 districts are quite similar. The main difference being the commercial C does have a 2-story minimum. In the case of these properties, the maximum height would be 35 feet because it's adjacent to residential properties. Whereas the mixed-use residential does not have a minimum height and it has a maximum of 40. It also has a requirement for impervious area. Maximum lot cover or a pervious area. The maximum lot coverage of impervious is 70%. The uses again are similar between the 2, but the mixed-use residential restricts the sizes again to keep the uses less intense adjacent to existing residential areas. In considering a rezone request, the considerations and required findings are whether or not the proposed zone change from commercial C to mixed use residential is in conformance with the future land use map and other policies within the comprehensive plan. Whether or not the proposed mixed use residential zone is consistent and compatible with existing zoning and future land uses in the vicinity of the site. And there's also consideration to be made on the effects of the proposed zone change on delivery of services by any political subdivision providing services in the city. Following public testimony and deliberation, City Council may either concur with the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, postpone consideration if there are additional information needed, or deny the application. And this again is just the properties requested for rezone.
Thank you, Ms. Tweeten. I assume that concludes your presentation. And this was a unanimous recommendation by Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you. Council, any questions for our planning director? Okay, thank you for that presentation. Appreciate it. Next, we'll have the applicant's presentation. As a reminder, council should address their questions to the applicant at the time of their presentation. Would the applicant like to come forward, please? Do we have an applicant here this evening? No, we have interested parties.
Hi, I'm John Satterberg. I had a very thorough letter put together. Did everybody get a chance to read it? Because I read it at the Planning and Zoning Commission, then we got to like the last part and somebody said, we've all read your letter, dude. Like, okay, so anyways, we'd purchased this building in March of 21 and we've been trying to find a way to get it to comply and we found it really difficult. And I think previous people that have made a stab at this building have had a difficult time getting it to conform to commercial C with parking, occupancy and all like other elements like that. And so in trying to find a way to get this to conform, going the single family residential route, Amy and Sarah Gilmore also were really helpful guiding us towards mixed use residential. And then we've pursued this. I've gotten a chance to read the comp plan pretty thoroughly and pointed all that stuff out in my letter. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's not the best presentation, but yeah, I'm happy to answer anything. And then based off of what we went through with planning and zoning, getting their unanimous support, we really appreciated that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Soderberg. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, it looks like we have none. So your presentation was perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So with no questions, we will now proceed to the public hearing. Please note that the public hearing is for comments only. Do not address questions to council or myself or to city staff. If council members have questions for the person testifying, they should ask those questions at the time of their testimony. For those participating on Zoom, you'll need a working microphone on your phone or computer to speak. If you wish to speak in favor or neutral or opposed, I will call for testimony on each, and you will raise your hand on Zoom at that time. When your name is called, you'll see a prompt on your screen asking whether you would like to unmute. Then you will need to unmute yourself in order to be heard. Those here in chambers who'd like to speak will again need to complete a sign-up form by the front door on the table. And please fill that out and hand that to the clerk in the front right of the room. Please state on the form whether you wish to speak in favor or neutral or opposed to the application, to the request. And of course, you'll see those options on the form. Please do not approach the dais. If you have any written materials for council, please hand those to staff. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this hearing. As a reminder, disruptive behavior includes clapping, disruptive noise, and comments or exclamations from the audience. The public hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who has signed up to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
As far as those who wish to testify.
Oh,
in
I'm
favor,
sorry. Yeah, we'll start with those in favor, please.
No one has signed up to speak in favor, Mr. Mayor.
And can we verify that online? Give everyone a moment. No one wants to speak in favor. Okay. We will now hear from those who are neutral to the request.
Kyle Schreiber,
I decided not to speak.
Okay. Anyone else neutral? Okay, and we'll now hear from those who are opposed to the request.
and no one has signed up to speak who is opposed, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. That concludes the public forum portion of. That concludes the public forum. Public hearing, excuse me. So, would council like to provide a motion? Or shall I provide some assistance there?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I move that Sandpoint City Council, after consideration of the criteria and relevant standards of Idaho Code and Sandpoint City Council, approve the request to City Council by John Starberg, Brandy Hovey, and Harold and Liz Stephenson for a zone change from commercial C to mixed-use residential on the properties known as 710, 714 Pine Street and 101 and 103 North Boyer Avenue, parcel IDs RPS 0500054022 AA, RPSO 5000544018 AA, RPSO 5000 or 0500054015 AA, and legally described as lots 15-24 of block 54 of West End Addition E, section 22, township 57 North, range 2 West, records of Bonner County. The recommendation is based on the findings that 1, the proposed zone change is in conformance with the future land use map and other policies within the comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed MUR zone is consistent and compatible with the existing zoning and future land use and uses in the vicinity of the site. 3, particular consideration has been given to the effects of this proposed zone change upon the delivery of services by any political subdivision providing public services within the planning jurisdiction. 4, staff has followed the notice procedures applicable to zone changes contained in Idaho Code 67-6511 and Sandpoint City Code Title 9, Chapter 9.
Thank you. You hear a motion in a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
So to the staff that worked really hard on this project, as well as the applicants, great job with this piece of property. It's beautiful. Well done. Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Welker.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. The ordinance passed its first reading by title only. I would entertain a motion that the rule. Yes, Madam Clerk.
We'll need to read the title of the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you. An ordinance of the City of Sandpoint, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, amending the zoning classification of the property described in section 1 of the ordinance from commercial C to mixed-use residential, providing for amendment to the official zoning map to reflect this change, finding that the new zone is in accord with the Sandpoint Comprehensive Plan, providing that all prior zones applicable to lands described in section 1 are hereby superseded, and providing for publication and an effective date. I'd entertain a motion that the rules requiring 3 separate readings. The ordinance has passed its first reading, and I would entertain a motion that the rules requiring 3 separate readings, once in the ordinance's entirety, be
Mr. Mayor.
suspended.
We'll need to have a motion that the ordinance pass its first reading by title only first. Top of page 6.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second that the ordinance pass its first reading by title only. This will be a roll call vote.
Do we have a motion that the ordinance?
So moved. Second.
You got it.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
The ordinance passes first reading by title only. Now I would entertain a motion that the rules requiring 3 separate readings, once in the ordinance's entirety, be suspended, and that the ordinance passes second and third readings under suspension of the rules. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Rule.
Yes.
The motion passed. This ordinance number 1403 is considered read, passed, and adopted under suspension of the rules, and this rezone request has been approved. Congratulations. Moving on to old business, staff seeks approval of the scope of work for phase 1 of the Division Avenue corridor improvement and authorization to finalize the construction documents and advertise the project for bids. I'll now yield the floor to construction manager Holly Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Give me a second, I'll read. Okay, here today to talk to you about the Division Avenue Corridor Project, Phase 1. What's before you is consideration to approve this project scope of work, authorize staff to finalize construction documents, and go out to advertise for bid. Award would come back to council in May. I'll go over a brief project overview. We'll jump into the background of the project, give you a couple updates, talk about the improvements of this project, and then schedule and budget. So a brief overview on the project. This is located on Division Avenue from just north of Highway 2 to Superior Street. The improvements of this project include a traffic calming measure called a lateral shift. The travel lanes on Division will be shifted to the west, providing for a wider frontage to be constructed on the east side of Division. The east side of the division would be revitalized along this corridor to include new sidewalk, a planter strip, curb, and gutter, and replacing driveway approaches. So there's an image of what that will look like on the east side. So background on how we got to this point. Back in 2018, efforts for a road safety audit began. That road safety audit was accepted in February of 2021. Also in February of 2021, the multimodal transportation master plan was adopted. That master plan fully incorporates the road safety audit. Then in December of 2021, Sandpoint applied for a child pedestrian safety grant and identified this first phase of the Division Corridor Improvement Project. That grant was accepted in September of 22 after the state found additional funds. So Division Avenue Phase 1 was identified in part by this child pedestrian safety grant. It's highly traveled by children, and it's the first step to this full corridor improvement on Division. So on the right side, you see sort of a timeline, and you can see Division Avenue progressing through the years. The full vision for Division Avenue is in the multimodal transportation plan under concepts 18 and 19. And you can see the full build out is on the long-term capital improvement plan, the 10 to 20 years out. In the meantime, what we can do this summer is just this phase 1 portion, which is in the middle, working on the east side. So since this last went to council in September, a few updates for you. We contracted with HMH Engineering to progress design. Adjacent property owners and businesses have been notified via letters and door knocking, phone calls. We also held a public open house on March 29th. There were 2 sessions. On the right there is just an image of some of the feedback that we collected. I also included that in your packet as an attachment, the specific comments that we got from the public. The other thing that we've been able to do is do a pilot. So yesterday morning, we piloted a temporary lane shift by the Michigan Division intersection. And this was to determine the best functionality for pavement striping as a result of this project. There were 2 alternatives under consideration. The first would be to provide the 6-foot dedicated bike lanes and 2 travel lanes. The other would be to have shared bike and travel lanes, 2 sharrows, and keep a turn lane. What was piloted was that first scenario where we eliminated the turn lane. And the outcome was that that turn lane is essential to the functionality. So we will be keeping that turn lane in the pavement stripping scenario, and I'll get to more detail on that next slide, but a huge thank you to those who participated on that pilot. Improvements of this project, getting into the details on the left-hand side. This is kind of just screenshots of the plans. You can see the new sidewalk that's going to be installed in red, and it also includes the driveways. In orange, you can see the pavement striping will be for sharrows with the turn lane. And I have a little kind of a section view of what that will look like in the bottom right corner. North of Michigan Street will have the dedicated bike lane. So as a result of the pilot, it was really important that we maintain a turn lane during school hours. So specific details of the improvements of this project, we would install 630 linear feet of sidewalk, approximately 500 feet of a planar strip, ADA curb ramp improvements on the corners. These are diagonal curb ramps. And the purpose of having diagonal curb ramps is just because of the very narrow right of way that we have on these streets, 60 feet wide on Division and Superior and 60 feet on Michigan. So we're just trying to kind of retrofit ADA compliant ramps in the existing space that we have. The other improvements include reducing conflict points on Division. We're able to remove 1 driveway. One of the parcels had 2 driveways, they only needed 1. So that would be a pretty big win. And then the other improvement would be to reduce the driveway widths. And this minimizes the length that pedestrians have to cross at driveways. Other improvements include new curb and gutter, catch basin replacements, and as I described, some pavement restriping. Schedule. This project will go out to bid in April through May. Board would go back to council for award in May on that 19th date. Construction would begin no earlier than June 12th. Schools are out the 9th, and there would be a big construction window for the contractor. Just trying to encourage some bids. So we provided a big window trying to get on someone's schedule. And the project would be completed before September 1st, before school resumes September 5th. This project does not include tree plantings, but it will be provided under a future effort. And the budget for this project is provided by the Child Pedestrian Safety Grant and the Streets General Fund. Are there any questions?
So any questions?
Yeah, can you share with us the pilot program? Can you kind of run us through that? I don't know if I understand that 100% here. And you did that as of yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday morning. We wanted to see how, so we had two pavement striping scenarios. We've heard from the public, it's important to have a dedicated bike lane. Long term, we'll have sharrows on Division. So we had two options and see which scenario fit best. So if we had two dedicated bike lanes, we wouldn't have room for a middle turn lane. So I'm speaking to these like scenarios in the bottom right here in the corner. So to help us figure out what functions best at this Michigan Division intersection, it's a pavement striping exercise. So we coned it off. Our streets department helped us eliminate that turn lane so that anyone going into the school had to use that northbound travel lane to make a left. And so we worked with the school district to schedule this pilot. We worked closely with the police chief and implemented it starting at 7 a.m. They had cones on Division and it didn't work. Traffic backed up pretty close to the highway. So the pilot pulled the cones and re-implement that turn lane. That storage is really valuable for folks to make that left-hand turn. So we've got to provide that turn lane for this pavement striping scenario.
So the exercise did work. You learned some stuff.
It was successful. We got our answer. We had two scenarios and wanted to pick the best for functionality, and we got that information. And so
Ollie, I just have a comment. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that you and Amanda did a really good job of communicating with the school district on all of this. So good work, and just testing these two scenarios I thought was a brilliant thing to do before we, commit to one of the options. But I thought the communication with the school district was particularly good. There were several emails sent from Becky to families just to alert them that this study was going to be happening. So kudos to you guys and to the police department for doing that. And I'm really glad you took the time and thought to actually conduct that study. That's really valuable. And this also, just another comment, I'm a huge fan of this child pedestrian safety grant, and I'm hopeful that the city can continue to pursue funds to develop, further north along this Division corridor, because this is about 5% of the total work we have envisioned for this corridor, but it's super exciting to see this work getting done. So thank you to the infrastructure team for all the work you put into this and the thought as well.
Thank you for those comments, Counselor. Any other questions or, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just had a question about the tree and the planting strips. If we kind of have a timeline on when that may happen or where we may find funds to put those trees in.
I know it's going to be a future effort. Fall and spring are the best time for plantings. I don't know if Jennifer, if you have updates.
Yeah,
on-
Counselor,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I can speak to this. So we will include that in our budget for next year for presenting to council to include funding for the trees for planting in the spring. And our source of funds, whether it is from general fund or we're waiting on a couple of urban forestry grants currently. So there may be some grant opportunities, but either way, it will be included in our budget for next spring.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Holly, for that presentation. Appreciate it. Are there any members from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Molly O'Reilly.
Mayor Ronstadt, member of council, thank you. Would you put the diagram back up of the project? I sent you guys an email earlier today because I'm concerned that the curb ramps are not the best that they can be. Oh, you can't while I'm talking. Federal Highways, after a lot of input, has said that whenever possible, you want the curb ramps to go directly in the direction of travel, and you want a pair of them. so that you're not sending somebody blind off they don't know where or depositing a wheelchair in the middle of an intersection. And this big wide curb ramp is going to let, we got some pickup trucks that would like to cut corners off they'll go because it's not raised. So what you have with a pair of curb ramps is you have a raised corner, and the radius of the curb matters. Trucks like wide radius, neighborhoods like narrow, because it slows turning traffic. And particularly when you've got kids there, you want traffic slowed. You don't want it faster running over your kids. And then at Superior, one leg of the crossing is missing for pedestrians. It shows an north-south and one east-west, but not two east-west. And on Division, the striping for those two, that pair, is going to help safety. Plus, kids are going to walk anyway, but you're going to cause somebody disabled to go out of direction and cross two rather than one street. It's really important that you have crossings in all directions whenever possible. And so I'm concerned that this project could be better. And I was not in town in March, but when I had a chance to look at it, there weren't curb ramps marked out. It was at an open house for another project, but it was there. And I commented then that when at all possible, it should be a pair of curb ramps, each sending the walker in the proper direction. You still have time. You can make that change. You don't have to approve it exactly as it is tonight. And I could see in the map that there you do have the right of way. You may have a problem at the church, the Baptist church, but they might give you a little bit of right of way if that's what it takes. They seem to care about kids' safety. So I encourage you to really look at these details because it matters to people walking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Reilly. Appreciate those comments.
No one else has signed up to speak on this matter, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Holly, can you, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you comment on that? I do find that curious, particularly the ramp that Ms. O'Reilly described on that it's non-separated ramp, right? And on looks like that would be the south side of Michigan.
So absolutely.
Thank you.
Our preference for curb ramps is exactly as Molly described. It is recommended to have perpendicular ramps and a dedicated ramp for each corner. In this case, we're really limited by existing infrastructure and where the right of way is. Division is a 60-foot right of way, and Michigan is only, I think it's 50 feet. So you can see, I hope you can see the right of way line here. This unidirectional curb ramp is right on the right of way line. We have about 6 feet from the back of curb to right of way. For the ideal ramps that we really like, we need 12 feet. You need 6 feet for the ramp and another, 4 to 6 feet for the landing. We just don't have the space.
Okay. Thank you for that. Council, any other questions? I would entertain a motion to approve the Division Avenue Corridor Improvement Phase 1 scope of work and authorize staff to finalize the construction documents and advertise the project for bids. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Grow.
Yes.
Motion passes. For the first item under new business this evening, council will consider awarding a contract to Woods Crushing and Hauling for a paving maintenance project on Ruth Avenue, Hickory Street, and Jefferson Avenue. I'll now yield the floor to Construction Manager Holly Ellis once again.
Thank you. 2023 pavement maintenance project. The request before you is to consider a contract award to Woods Crushing and Hauling, Inc. in the amount of $523,235 for the 2023 maintenance project. We'll go over background improvements proposed by this project and some details on the contract award. So this project was identified due to its low rating on the pavement condition assessment from 2019 and utility improvement needs in this area. So the PCI along this project ranges anywhere from 24 to 38, which is a very poor to poor condition. Back in the fall, late summer, fall of 2022, there was a utility project. The water main was replaced on Ruth Avenue. Hickory and Jefferson had some water and sewer service line replacements. This paving project would follow up to pave those streets. Specific improvements include pavement reconstruction. The figure below is a section of what that reconstruction will look like. There will be a geotextile fabric, a new base, and asphalt over the whole project. Curb ramps are going to be replaced in accordance with ADA along the project. The project is also including some stormwater improvements, 4 stormwater manhole replacements, 400 linear feet of storm drain replacement, and 15 catch basin replacements. Details of the contract award. This project was bid in accordance with Idaho code. Woods Crushing and Hauling was the lowest and responsible bidder. The total award would be $523,235. It is within the fiscal year 23 budget, and funds are coming from the Streets General Fund and Water Fund. After, if awarded, adjacent property owners would be notified and construction would be complete before September 8th. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Questions? Yeah.
I just have sort of a chicken or an egg question, which came first. So because of the very poor condition from our roads survey that we had done, did we choose to replace the road, and because of that, then choose to do the sewer water work, or was it the sewer water work that needed to be done?
So for what I recall from the Ruth water main replacement, that was something that our crews were really frequently responding to breaks. So the water main along Ruth was to kind of alleviate our maintenance crews' response. And then for Jefferson and Hickory, it was more the opposite, that it was that those streets needed repair from a pavement perspective. So the idea was to improve the utilities service lines beneath them.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any members of the public that want to comment on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead. Harry Logan.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Logan and I live in the city limits of Sandpoint. Here are my comments and questions regarding the 2023 paving maintenance project, Ruth Avenue, Hickory Street, and Jefferson Avenue. In the staff memo before you are listed the parameters of this project with the concluding information that this project follows the water main project completed at this location during fall of 2022.
The memo further identifies all the segments as being a part of the recommended improvements in the adopted pavement maintenance plan done by IMS. They in fact are not. Therefore, my issue is not with the overall paving project. I think it's great, but with whose budget is paying the bill. Historically and most appropriately, the utility that causes the damage to a street resulting in needed repair or replacement pays for that repair or replacement. In this case, it would be the City Water Enterprise Fund. Instead, some of the street overlay funds are being used to pay for part of this project, which part I don't know, nor do I know the amount. Only one of the street sections included in this project is even listed in the 1 to 5 year plan for our streets that need attention. Jefferson from Larch to Spruce does appear in year 1 requiring a FWM and thick overlay. I haven't a clue if that is what is being done here or if a more expensive repair is being done. The street overlay fund is so small and is best to be used where there are no other funding sources, not as a supplement to the water fund. I hope you amend your motion to approve this contract to fund exclusively with water dollars. Thank you.
Thank you for those thoughtful comments. Madam Clerk, is there anyone else?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I would give, does staff want to comment on that comment? I think it's reasonable. Thank you, Amanda. I think it's a reasonable question. How this is being funded, if that can be unpacked a little bit, that would be helpful, I think.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I too appreciate the question. I think it's a great point. We have spent quite a bit of time analyzing which funds are going to be appropriated to this particular project. I do want to clarify regarding our pavement maintenance plan. It is correct that there are recommendations between the 1 to 5 year window. What are our highest priority from strictly our third party independent consultant that assessed our streets? That is based on, as you'll recall, when we first adopted that plan and incorporated it into our multimodal transportation plan, that recommendation is really around the idea of fixing those streets before they're at the tipping point of becoming failing. So right when they're on the border, if they're in a fair condition, for example, before they become very poor or poor, those are the priorities per that plan. In our conversations with council and as we worked through prioritizing our budget, we recognize that our citizens also care about the streets that are failing. So the IMS report would have that we never touch our failing streets. So those key streets like Cedar Street west of Division, that doesn't rise to a priority, but it does to our citizens. Ruth Avenue is one of the highest locations that our citizens are continually complaining about. And I think that you noticed in the photo that it is truly failing. And that's what that PCI or the pavement condition index references as well. So as far as the allocation, it's approximately 9% of the total contract value is going to be allocated to the water fund. So the method that we use is consistent with what we have for other projects, which is what is a reasonable amount that if we were only doing a water project and we were to come in and excavate a trench to replace that water line, what is that proportionate share of that width compared to the overall width that we're paving? So for example, if it's 8 feet wide for a trench to replace the water line, but the overall pavement width is 36 feet, only the 8 feet of the 36 feet is appropriated to the water fund. That's really to ensure that we're making a very clear and transparent record, especially from an audit perspective. We wouldn't want to abuse the use of those funds, obviously. And then as far as our overall pavement maintenance on the other 2 streets, as Holly explained, I think very well, those are, primarily a pavement project that are included in that tipping point in the IMS report. So hopefully that helps explain. I do want to know, actually, just from a general fund perspective, we're pretty grateful to be able to have the local option tax. So while we note that it's the general fund, only a portion is coming out of that overlay budget that we've historically had. And then the other portion is coming out of the local option tax so that we're able to physically deliver some results with those funds this year. As well as just, I'll note, when it comes to the overlay, component. As you'll recall, we used to have a budget of about 250,000 per year. We now have a budget of 500,000 per year for those funds. So really excited to get this much pavement done in a single season.
Thank you for that clarification. That really helps.
You're welcome.
All right. I would entertain a motion approving the resolution awarding the contract for the 2023 paving maintenance project on Ruth Avenue, Hickory Street, and Jefferson Avenue to Woods Crushing and Hauling Incorporated in the amount of $523,235. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Motion passes. The final item under new business this evening, council will consider amendments to the police salary schedule, attachment C to the city's salary administration policy. I now yield the floor to City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before the council tonight for consideration is an amendment to our salary policy to provide an additional 2% adjustment specifically to our salary schedule for police effective May 7th. And why we have an odd date, it relates to when we're calculating payroll. So we have our biweekly payroll. So that gets us at the beginning of a pay period. And that's why we aren't proposing something at the beginning of the month. As council will recall, every year when we go through our budgeting process, and we're in it right now, in administration, working with the mayor, all of our division heads, one of our elements that we do with our budget development is benchmarking where we are with our wages and our compensation scales with other jurisdictions throughout the region. So we benchmark up and down Idaho. We also look a bit into Western or Eastern Washington and look at how we're benchmarking against other governments. And that's combined with salary survey that we participate in every year. And then through meetings that I participate in with the city administrators up and down the state, I kind of have a sense of generally where they're going with their budgets moving forward into future years. So our goal has been, according to our compensation policy within our benchmarking, we are looking to stay within plus or minus 5% with our benchmarking group. And there isn't an exact science to our approach other than we look at what adjustments need to be made when we're outside of that benchmarking for a particular grade or for particular positions. But we also look at what our approach is going to be relative to what we can afford in our budget. And are we chasing a trend or are we trying to stay ahead of a trend that we see coming? We've been really successful over the last 5 or 6 years in staying with trend or leading trend because we kind of knew where things were going instead of doing catch up. And historically in the past, we've often been in that scenario of catch up when there are significant adjustments or when we have lagged behind. We've been presented with specific challenges this year, and particularly police salaries, because different jurisdictions were looking at adjustments to compete with other jurisdictions they see as their primary competition for recruiting law enforcement and retaining law enforcement. And so we saw some significant jumps in pay increases, particularly in law enforcement last fall, that were not shown in the trending when we were looking at salary surveys. And it also wasn't necessarily in line with what administrators were communicating in the spring that they thought they might be able to do or what they could afford with their budget. Most particularly, what really threw us out of line with our police budgets, and I'm gonna pull this chart up, I think, so you can see. There we go. Was, as you'll recall, Bonner County made some significant adjustments to law enforcement salaries in the fall. And typically, when you look at pay across cities and counties, cities generally are leading in pay over what counties are typically doing. However, Bonner County made a big adjustment last fall. And again, that's why we are looking at what we're doing with COLAs to keep up with trends, to try to avoid significant shifts that we might do in a particular year. But when you look at the county scale for law enforcement now and our current scale in Sandpoint, you can see our average when we're looking at our rank commission positions for police. The difference between where we are in our benchmarking and the county benchmarking is almost 8% lagging now with adjustments that they made last fall. It is affecting us in police with retention, and it's also affecting us with recruitment, particularly where you can see that we've gotten out of alignment is with the police officer recruit position. We've also included in this chart, in addition to the county, particularly, we've also included City of Moscow. And the reason that we've included Moscow and benchmarking against them is across our whole structure and our philosophy relative to pay, the jurisdiction most similar to us in our region is Moscow. They are structured the way we are throughout our organization. They are our most comparable city pretty much across the board with all of our positions. They too made a big adjustment, so we see the lag with them, but a particular concern is the adjustment that we see with our neighboring jurisdiction right down the street. So that's when we start losing or have the potential to lose rank and file right down the street from police department over to sheriff's department. We are looking at addressing scale adjustments in the budget that will be coming before you next year for additional scale adjustments for police, as well as our general scale across the city. It is a competitive time in government, like I know it is in the private sector as well, with positions. And generally, it's really across the board of local jurisdictions, particularly with the politics of late around COVID, just before COVID, following COVID, police recruitment and retention has been especially difficult. We have savings in our personnel budget in police this year because of both delays in being able to hire open positions, and we have lost a few people that are within our force to other jurisdictions over precisely this issue of pay. Therefore, it is our recommendation to council tonight that we do an out of the ordinary adjustment to our police salary scale of 2% effective May 7th. And we are also recommending that we eliminate our lowest level of police officer recruits. So we are typically using that when we're recruiting a new police officer. When they get through post, we move them up to a police officer 1. But as you can see in the police officer recruit, we are so far out of line with what other jurisdictions are paying right now to recruit new officers that it doesn't make sense for us to keep that police officer recruit. Historically, we've kind of gone back and forth where we've had that, we've not had that. We started at a police officer 1. So we are recommending at this time with what is happening in the volatility of the market, that we eliminate the police officer recruit, which will enable us hopefully to fill our currently open positions. A question you may have is relative to the percent difference. And so why aren't we making changes relative to the differences between those different grades that we have? And instead we're recommending and across the board. You will hear this from us this summer when we get into budgeting too. There is relativity within our grades, and then you can see volatilities within different grade levels. And so we have to look at our balance between the different grades, which what we consider with that is level of responsibility. We're considering supervision responsibilities. We're considering independent judgment. We are considering potential liability with decision-making for the city. So that's throughout both of our police salary schedule as well as our general city grade system, where we come up with the differences. So what we have presented in the council packet. Get that pulled up too. We have redlined our changes for you. I'm on the right thing here. This is reflecting the elimination of our police officer recruit, our entry-level position. Again, we do have steps that are within our police salary schedule, just like we have in our general grade system at the city. So we are typically hiring in positions at a grade level 1, a grade level 2, and then we are recognizing our employees for their service with the city, the knowledge they gain about this city in particular, and our organization, and their training over time with our STEP system. So that's how employees move up through our STEP system. Our basis for the 2% increase at this time is based on budget availability, what we have available in police. And also, as we look at any changes that we're making in our salary schedules, we have to look at what the impacts of those are going to be down the road. We were recently notified about a month ago from the Lake Pend Oreille School District that they will be eliminating one of our 2 school resource officer positions. So that pays 60% of one of our police positions. And you will recall that a few years back ago, we added an additional police officer position. And our basis for adding that position was we had the funding from the school district for 60%. We then had partnered with City of Kootenai for providing, we had that nexus with the school resource officer, so providing some contract services for City of Kootenai. And what that enables us overall in our structure and number of officers needed is that gave us an additional officer in the summertime when we're at peak population, peak call service. As we are looking at preparing our budget, as we are looking at budget savings to use at this point, and I'm certain this is where we will land with the budget that will be presented to council with the mayor's support. We will be presenting a budget with retaining that police officer position that we've added. But understand with that then that about 70% of a position we are now having to bring on to the general fund because of the loss of the funding from the school district. And we have had meetings with Mayor Lewis, with City of Kootenai, relative to that nexus and services with the City of Kootenai. And unfortunately, we're really in the position of being able of having to cancel that contract as well. We get about 15,000 in revenue from the City of Kootenai every year, which was balanced with our school resource officer and our presence in the City of Kootenai. But within City of Kootenai, calls have increased substantially from the time we began contracting for services. We contract on a per call basis, but our calls are increasing in the city as well, with the increasing visitor population as well as our increasing population with the city in general. So we do believe it justifies retaining the police officer position that we added back a few years ago, but that will have impacts to our general fund, and that impacts our balance with what we're able to do again as we look forward with increases. As indicated in the packet, this is a first of a series that we will be recommending to council. You will be seeing with the budget proposed for next year an additional grade adjustment for police, as well as a salary scale grade adjustment for our general employee groups, and you will be seeing a COLA included in the budget effective January 1st. In total for police, that takes us to an 8% grade and COLA adjustment combined with steps that averages out to 10% increase for our employees. And that brings us back in line with where we need to be with the market. That cover everything. Chief, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer did an outstanding job of really covering and highlighting everything I would have said. I just want to thank her and Sarah for the time and just kind of put a little perspective. So the county did that 8 to 14% increase last year. Coeur d'Alene, last year they did a 15% increase. The Idaho State Police is doing a 10% increase this year in their budget. So when we start talking about this 8 and 10%, just to keep up with what's going on in our region, in our area, it's real. It's not make believe. It's not fake. It's something that we face. We did lose an officer last year to an agency. We're losing one here in the next month to go to Coeur d'Alene. He's leaving because of money and that ability he has to make there. And we see a trend. Spokane goes to Seattle. They're getting huge signing bonuses. Coeur d'Alene goes to Spokane. We go to Coeur d'Alene. And so we have this cycle. Our goal really is to maintain the staff we have. We have an excellent staff, guys that we can be proud of serving our community. The goal is to keep those now, because we know in the next 3 years, our population is going to increase. And the last thing we want to see as a city is a major turnover in 3 years as our population increases, and then try to bring on new staff and train them and get them up to speed. When that hits, we want to have the officers we have now with this. So thank you.
All right. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor, sorry,
You go ahead.
not a question. And you can be wherever you need to be, because I'll talk loud. So I'm gonna try to rein in a little bit of frustration that just kind of occurred. Saving the best for last. It's great that you're last on the agenda. It's clear, and I have a point. It's clear that we care about rezoning. It's clear that we care about paving and sidewalks. It's clear that we care. Our public left when we're talking about cops. The reason why we're able to talk about this stuff is because of you guys. I'm gonna look for the silver lining in this one and think that they trust us with their absence to make good decisions for them. I really wish that they would have been here, because I care about baseball fields. I care about tennis fields. I care about playgrounds. I care about sidewalks. I care about schools. I care about you guys, because all of you guys are choosing to be here when you could be someplace else, making more money. You're not here for the money. We can work with them and help them get what it is that they have already earned and deserve. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Awesome. Thank you for those comments, Counselor.
Question.
Yeah.
So in the last 2 years, how many officers have we lost?
So in the last 2 years, we've lost 2, one at the end of last year, and then one currently right now for wages.
Okay, and that will happen in the next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then can you state again for the recording and the public, how much does it actually cost us to bring a new officer on outside of their salary? I know you gave me that number, so you can just ballpark that.
Yeah, when we talk about training someone from a recruit level up, we're over 100,000 a year just in that cost of. And you think about our training, we do an extensive training program. We have 2 officers tied together. The equipment, it's expensive.
The uniforms.
The uniforming,
everything.
and that's if we keep them. You look at the gentleman last year that we hired, I think he was with me a month and a half, with those expensive before he decided to leave and go someplace else. So it's important that we get good recruits that want to be here, that want to be part of our community, because it's expensive to train and get those officers to the level that we have right now. And if we lose them, it's expensive.
Right. My second question would be, are our benefits package comparable? Because it's not just a salary number all the time. So do we have any, Jennifer's kind of looking at me, so that's probably
Yeah,
her
'cause I'm gonna
question.
go like
You
this.
stay there, Corey, just in case.
But
just
no,
to
it's-
look good.
But that's one of the things the guys do look at when we're hiring recruits. That's one of the questions. They used to not ask that question. Usually it's based on pay and they were good. Now, when we're looking at recruits, they're asking about pay, they're asking about vacation time, they're asking about benefits, they're asking about our healthcare plans. So.
I know we gave them cars.
Study cars. And that's why we do, to be honest, we look at those pluses that we can do because we're the take home car concept that the council approved are all factors in trying to maintain that retention for our officers. But for the healthcare, I'm gonna look at you.
Mr. Mayor. Every spring when we are benchmarking both pay and we're also benchmarking benefit packages with changes that council and Councilor Rule, you've been on for the last 8
Long time.
years as we've been working through this, and a number of changes with the variety of medical plans, with providing medical for employees with no employee contribution, with adding additional benefits like vision option, with increasing our dental benefits with orthodontic option, with conversion, and there's still some controversy about this, but I think we're over most of it, moving from sick and vacation time to PTO. So those employees who don't have to take time off for sick are able to use some of that time to be able to enjoy some more time off, with payouts associated with that consolidated time for employees who are retiring, and various options with those, and also our option for employees who have a lot of time on the books and aren't able to take all of that time to have a 1-year cash out option of a week. Those are the kinds of changes that we've made over the last 8 years that I think have significantly increased the offerings that we have through our benefit program, and really have us leading in that front. It's on the pay side that we ended up lagging this year. And again, we're always trying to trend that and keep ourselves where we're competitive and we're ahead of that, and leading has been our approach, not following. But the changes last fall, particularly it was straight the pay. There wasn't an increase generally in benefits. It was straight pay last year. So.
Okay, I'm done with Corey, but I do have one final little housekeeping item. And I don't remember which page it was on, but I know it's like item number 4, and you read through our procedures about how we go about looking at, let me, yeah, the responsibilities, supervisor. So yeah, guidelines, that's it. So number 4, step increases, blah, 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 approval of HR and city administrator. Since our structure changed, we should, I'm assuming it's going to stay changed. That's just a housekeeping piece about it can't be an and because you're both of those people.
I am only both of those people until next week. We have hired a new HR risk manager.
Well, there
so
you have it. So that
I
answers.
intend to be both. much
Okay,
longer.
so we don't have to get rid of the and then. I just, Melissa knows how I am. I just find these little things and so I'm done.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to bring up one more point. That retention component is important, and I'm really glad that you two both brought that up, is that we are investing into an individual, and that's city service wide, that we invest in that training that another municipality, community, or corporation company receives the benefit of our training. Now, in my line of work, we do the same thing. We've got a great mentoring system. We've got a very good system in place. And then we hand off this successful, or it's recruited out to go someplace else, which there's a part of me that is proud because they become a seed for something else, for something to grow. And that's wonderful. However, our ability to retain is critical. And I want our community to receive the benefit of the seeds that we've planted within our individuals that are here. And that it's not just the cops, it's the fire department, it's you guys, it's everything. It's our communities and municipalities investment for retention, for future growth, for us to be safe. Honestly, that's all it comes down to, and it's never tested until it is. And I want our people to be able to rise to those occasions. That's enough. Thank you.
Well said. All right, Madam Clerk, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this matter?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, entertain a motion to approve the resolution implementing an amendment City of Sandpoint Salary Administration Policy, Appendix C, Police Salary Schedule, to reflect an adjustment of 2% and delete reference to the police officer recruit grade effective May 7th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Rule.
I was going to say yes, and I would like to kind of agree with Counselor Groot that it is sad when we make a budget change that the public's not here to care about it.
Motion passes. The final item that concludes the regular agenda this evening. The final item on the agenda is an executive session. We'll entertain a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-2061F for the purpose of communicating with legal counsel to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you to those members of the public and staff who attended this evening. Everyone not participating in the executive session will now need to exit the room, please. And the Zoom meeting will now end. Good night, everyone. And if council needs a few minutes to do the restroom and all that,